what in Gala do we have here?
I have
Who's
to do a
better
quick
and why?
count. Black is up a pawn, right? Yes. Black is up a pawn. And this knight on b2 is over here looking a little bit loose. But speaking of loose knights, this knight on d4 is directly under attack. I feel like this is going Artemiev's way, because if you defend your knight with the pawn, you welcome this knight into d3, and that's no good.
So the bishop instead drops back to c3, but now you're welcoming the knight, or are you, back on a4? Bishop takes f7 check is a saving grace for white. Without that move, by the way, white's entire central construction would have collapsed, but Artemiev's clock, it didn't cost him in the last game. But this is a significantly more complicated position. It's maybe time for c5. If you can get a couple of minor pieces board, I think it becomes a lot easier to handle this in acute time pressure.
c5 is a great move, and I think that's what Artemiev is going to play. The fact that he's thinking here, this knight's under attack, it has only one square to go to. I think he is going to play the move c5, and after c5, you take this knight, black takes this one, and thank you very much for the strong central pawns. He plays it, and I think this advantage is bigger than what the eval bar is saying.
Yeah, because after bishop takes b2, which might be forced, if you move the knight away from d4, you'll allow a queen trade. The bishop on f6 also x-rays the rook on a1. That could be problematic tactically. But if you play bishop 2, black's pawn phalanx in the center looks mighty imposing after c takes d4. I agree. This looks miserable suddenly for white.
Maybe there's some way there after taking d4 away, rook d1 and quickly try to win back the pawn. But even if you win this d4 pawn, a5 is hanging in so many different positions. Black is going to be up a pawn in this game. I feel like Artemiev is in the driver's seat, but he only has 25 seconds left, and that's the amount of time, very little, where blunders happen.
I really think Vladislav Artemiev is one of the best time scramblers in the world. It's an underrated skill for him. The way in which he keeps his composure is unbelievable. He's also going to bring his rook into the game with rook a d8, and bishop f4, I think, is what MVL is pinning all of his hopes on. He's trying to stick his knight onto d6 and really generate threats against black's undefended pieces.
And 10 seconds, now 12.1 for Artemiev. And bishop f4, knight b6 is the hope.
5.
Okay, this is very important. e7 square is covered. That would be a fork square. But after...
Oh, knight d6? No, he goes back to e3.
Forwards. Maybe after knight d6, there was some like knight... At some point, this knight is going to move, and the rook on a1 is going to be in trouble.
What's crazy is that the knight on b2 doesn't really have any retreating squares. Knight d3, I would seriously consider on the next move. So maybe MVL should move his rook out or play knight g4 to hit the tail of the discovery, that bishop on f6, which can move to d4, should the necessity arise.
But this pawn also can go up to c3. Let's just defend that knight with a pawn advance, and then white's pieces are frozen. This knight is so annoying because you can't play rook d1. I'm taking it. If you play rook b1, you're staring into a blockading piece that is going to be protected by a pawn. So I actually think that activity is hard to come by for Maxime. He is spending quite a lot of time right now. And by the way, Vladimir Fedoseev, he takes game 2 as well. He is officially through to Division 1 of the Chessable Masters.
What an incredible tournament. What a mini-match for Vladimir Fedoseev. Yarnabekov Dusatorov loses 0-2. Not something that you say often, but this is anybody's game as Artemiev makes some luft for his king and simultaneously stops white's knight from jumping into g4. This is the kind of class that he plays with, even with 10 seconds on the clock.
And he might throw another pawn up. g5
Let's
with
go.
tempo. He said, let's get those rooks double. Now knight d1. That knight couldn't jump anywhere. It can go to d1. g5 still available. He takes first on g4, and knight takes g4. You called for it before. Not easy to play with rook d1 as a potential response. But Danya, I feel like not that many pawns remain, so white has a shot.
But MVL, he really likes the placement of his knight on e3. It's restricting all of black's pieces. Eval bar dipped there for a moment, but now the knight is hanging, and bishop b5 comes close to picking off the c4 pawn. Instead, the knight jumps into f5, and rook takes c4 is going to follow.
Wait, rook d2, and if you take the pawn takes, what a find!
When he promotes, and the knight can't stop the pawn from e3 because you capture it.
Artemiev is the devil. He set this up. That was insane.
But it's not over. Bishop e3 is an excellent defensive move, and it's followed by an even crazier tactic.
Oh my gosh, the c-pawn is pinned now. So if you take this knight on d3, you lose the rook, and f2 is hanging, and you can't play rook f4 because the knight covers, and you can't play knight d1 because it's under attack. And now what? You have to find the knockout here. Yeah, that seems
eliminate
simple.
the pawn, and then strike white where it hurts. Rook d8 to e8 hits the knight on e3. I don't know if that's the move. 4 seconds for Artemiev. He's got to find a way to coordinate.
Oh my gosh,
The
there's
knight
knight
back. That was the
g1
top
check.
move.
If rook takes c3, it's knight g1, king g3, knight e2 with a fork, winning this rook on
No way.
c3.
Knight g1 can basically be pre-moved. Maybe rook a1 is worth playing for, right? Sometimes you get wrong pre-moves. The rook from d8, though, Robert, can slide over to e8, and then the knight on e3 is also experiencing tremendous problems with knight g5 check, attempting to dislodge the king from the knight.
Yeah, 2 different ways to dislodge the king with rook f2 check available. So rook e8 looks great. Goes knight g1. He wants knight e2. Where's this king even going?
Rook e8 is possible. He gives the check, buys himself a little bit of time.
He might repeat. Oh, he plays rook e8. He just knows he's in charge right now.
He's playing perfectly. This is unbelievable. He's made every computer move.
You called it. You said, he may play slowly at first, but even in time scrambles, he plays impeccably. And look at this. Knight g1 check is already going after this knight over here. He found that square for his pony, and now Maxime also down 20 seconds.
Beautiful. And Maxime is running out of defensive resources. Rook a1, knight d4 check ends it. Let's see if Artemiev can find checkmate. He doesn't need to. He just gobbles all of the pawns. He can move his rook back to d2 and then simply promote his c-pawn. I think MVL might resign.
The one thing you have to watch out for is g5. Watch out on that f7 square. You cannot allow the rooks to attack it. He throws in knight g1. Where's this king going? If it goes here, maybe there's rook e3 check.
Or knight h3. And then take g5.
Oh, that's a good.
But then
good
king
find
takes
by you.
g5. He goes
Look
rook
at this.
g2.
Knight e2
Also
check.
good.
If you take this pawn, there's knight e2.
Oh, exquisite.
Now knight h3.
But now what?
Oh,
Knight takes f7.
check.
Wait
and
a
take.
second. But then I take your knight on h3, and it's not totally over there in that rook endgame.
You're up 2 pawns.
Rook e3.
Oh, that is such a good intermezzo. That's game over. Artemiev, look at that. He's calm, cool, collected. He just gives the head nod. He goes, I'm in Division 1 here at the Chessable Masters.